All right, so I'm going to talk to you about basically me at first and why I decided to go into science. So I'm a biologist. I have a PhD in biology. I study a lot of different things, and I teach a really cool class. So I'm going to talk a lot about basically what I do every day. And then you'll have an opportunity to get some gloves on and touch some cool things if you want. Because I think you guys know, I think you guys got word of what's going to be going on. I do teach anatomy, so I brought some organs. And just in case it's stressing you out, if that grosses you out, you certainly don't have to do it. I do have high school groups come through pretty much every Friday. If you've ever heard of Nevada Bound, those are some tours we do on campus for students that might be interested in checking out the university. And students that are interested in biology always come to my lab. So it is something that a lot of high school students go through and look at. And a lot of times initially people are like, I don't want to, but once you warm up, it's very scientific, and I'll talk all about that. Okay? All right, so a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Salt Lake City and went to University of Utah, which I'll talk about. That's why I'm telling you all this exciting stuff. But also because I was in the Great Basin Desert, which so is Reno, and I loved it. I was in a desert with mountains right there, and just like Reno, which is why I ended up here. So I really, really, really basically loved where I lived. I loved being active, I loved being outside, I loved hiking, I loved skiing, all of that type of thing, okay? So knowing that I loved to be outdoors, but not knowing really much about what my options were beyond high school, I'm a first generation college student, so nobody in my family had ever gone to college before. Okay, so in my parents, I love them dearly, but to them, I should get out of high school and go get a job and start making a living like normal people do. And when I would say, well, I think I want to go to college, they would say, are you just trying to prove you're smart? We know you're smart. And I was like, nobody really got it, but I never really had any idea what I could do besides maybe be a doctor, okay? I was really passionate about math and science, really loved that, but everybody would say, oh, if you're good at science, you need to be a doctor. That's pretty much all there is, okay? So, started college, I was a human biology major. Most colleges or universities don't have their majors all broken up like that, but University of Utah, you could declare an emphasis. So I was a biology major, but it was a human biology. So all the pre-meds did that. I was obviously pre-med. A lot of students do that, and I probably would have been happy being a doctor. I worked at a hospital as an orderly. That's how I paid for college. I paid my own way through college. So I would work and transport patients around. Like if somebody came in the emergency room and needed a CAT scan because of some head injury, they would say, okay, go to the ER and get this patient. And then I'd take them back to the CAT scan. That's how I paid for school. I liked it. I was just moseying along. And then all of a sudden, as a senior, I was required to take 2 upper division classes in biology that were outside of my interest. So it couldn't be in a human biology type course. So I took field ecology, which had a big long field trip down to the Mojave Desert, and I took field mammalogy, which was sort of the same thing, another field trip, a different area, but we tracked animals, okay? I fell in love. I had no idea that world existed. And a lot of times you don't. That's what college is about. All of a sudden, you're taking these courses and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't know I loved genetics so much, or something like that. For me, it was all of a sudden, I was outside doing things, and I thought, people do this for a career. People go out and they're outside, they're doing research, and they make a career out of it. And so for me, that was a real eye-opening experience, and I'm really glad I took those classes. So I decided, I'd already taken the MCAT, which is the medical school entrance exam. I did really well on it, and So it was sort of a tough decision because once you do well on that test, it's like, I did well, I should do it. But I decided I'll apply to graduate school, go try to get a master's degree, and if I don't like it, then I'll go back and go to med school. So that was my whole thinking as somebody that really had no idea what was out there. I did not know what a master's degree or a PhD even was. I didn't know what those words meant when I was in college. I started graduate school not knowing a lot of things that other people knew. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did to get my master's degree. So, and you guys maybe have already heard this from the previous speakers, but basically in the sciences you say, okay, I want to get a master's degree, and you have to come up with this research project. And for me, I wanted it to be some sort of outside thing. I really knew I wanted to do something that had to do with the Great Basin Desert, maybe the mountain ranges, okay? So I did a dispersal project, which I'll talk about. How many of you guys know what pinyon pine trees are? It's the Nevada state tree all around here. Really? I should have brought in a big giant branch from a pinyon pine tree. They're the ones that you see, how many of you guys have been to Virginia City? Okay, so you drive up through the pinyon forest. You know the pine nuts that you eat? Have you guys ever eaten pine nuts? Those are from pinyon pine trees. Okay? So what happens, and this was a project that I did that took me actually 3 years to do, kind of because I had a baby right in the middle of that. I decided to get everything done at one time, so decided to go to graduate school, get married, and have 2 kids all at the same time because I just wanted to get it all checked off my list and go, okay, now I can not worry about when I'm going to have kids because I'm a female and blah, blah. Anyway, so back to my project. So anyway, here I was going to look at pinyon pine. These are the trees. Those look kind of familiar to everyone. Everyone knows what sagebrush is? Okay. So here's all the sagebrush, pinyon pine trees throughout. So pinyon pine trees get moved around. You can see there's little young trees here, okay? So in nature, how does this happen? And most people thought pinyon pine trees moved around by birds. And they kind of do. Birds will get the seeds, take them somewhere else, and bury them. Bury the seed, storing it for later, right? But I wondered what rodents had to do with it, because we have a lot of rodents around here in the Great Basin Desert. So anyway, I did a study where I built these big enclosures out in the middle of the Pine Knot Range, just east of Carson City, if you guys have ever been out there. Anyway, this was like fences, so rodents couldn't get in or out. So I trapped all the rodents out of here. And then I would take a rodent, here's some of the rodents I looked at, and put them into these enclosures. I'm going to go forward for 1 sec. Here's a bunch of pinyon pine seeds. Those look kind of familiar, same thing as these. And I made these seeds radioactive. Okay, so you put this radioactive label on them. So I didn't touch them. I would touch them sometimes with gloves, but just really quickly. But the reason I did that is once they're radioactive, I could find them with a Geiger counter. So I would put radioactive seeds in this enclosure, and then I would put a rodent species in there with the seeds. Okay? And what these rodents do, this is a white-tailed antelope ground squirrel. If you guys are ever just out walking around somewhere, not on a road, but out kind of through the sagebrush or pinyon juniper woodland, something, if you guys see something that they kind of look like chipmunks, but here they are. These are really easy to see, and they're all over. So now you guys will know. They flip their tail up on their back, and it's all white underneath. That's how they shade themselves and live in the desert. So they're really easy to spot, because you'll be like, I see them all the time, and you see this white thing on their back that shades them. So kangaroo rat, this is a pinyon mouse. Anyway, take these rodents, and they would take the seeds from the feeder and go bury them. Then I could come back the next day. I just leave them overnight. Some of them are nocturnal, so they're only out at night. But you come back the next day and go around with a Geiger counter. And when it would come across a hot spot where seeds were under the soil, it would go like That's what Geiger counters do. They detect radioactive things. So then I would know, oh, that animal buried some seeds, so I would dig up and see what they had done. So this looks kind of weird, but what happens, which is really cool, is all of these rodent species that live around here, every single one of them will take seeds, if they eat seeds, which most of them do, any seed they find, not just pinyon pine seeds. We have a lot of shrubs around here and trees that make seeds. So they take the seeds, and then they take them and hide them from other animals and to store for later to eat in the winter. So when they do that, they bury them. It's amazing. They have this. Okay, I brought in a kangaroo out for you guys to see, stuffed, of course. But this animal, not very big, that's this guy right here. See these cheeks right here? They have these big special cheek pouches. And you guys can look at this later if you want when we're looking at organs. But they have these special cheek pouches. And one of these animals fit 14 of these seeds in its cheek pouches at one time. That's like flippin' amazing, sorry. That thing was like, had to be just, I mean, that's a lot. It's pretty crazy. So this was the cache it made. So the animal goes over, finds seeds, normally in nature they're just on the ground, goes over there, shoves them in their cheek pouches, runs over, digs a hole, they push the seeds into the little hole and then bury it. You can't even tell it's there. If you're walking around, you're probably walking all over caches. That's what they're called, they're caches. And you don't even know, they're under the ground, okay? So what that does for the animal is gives it some food over the winter, and they have amazing memories. So they go and dig it. They'll zero right in on where it's at. It's not like they sit there and try, and like, I'll try here. No, they go, bam, they find it. It's amazing. So they find most of them, but they usually bury more seeds than they need, which is good for the tree, because the ones they forget or that they leave in the ground have basically been planted by them, right? So the next spring, it rains, whatever, then you go out the next summer and look around, there's little seedlings popping up. And all of those are from animal caches that have been left, okay? So that's basically how shrubs and trees, most around here, move around. So it's not people out there planting them, they don't just drop and get planted. You have all these little animals going around burying them. So I was pretty psyched. This was published, and yay! So rodents are dispersing pinyon pine. That's pretty cool. All right, that got me a master's degree. That and a lot of other stuff, coursework and everything. So then I decided to get a PhD. Actually had another baby, then got a PhD. So I had a kid between master's and PhD. Pretty exciting. So I was a crazy person, started a PhD with 2 little babies and whatever, just wanted to just go for it, okay? So I'm going to go through this one a little bit. I won't go through as many details about caching, so I already told you that. But this is a plant, this is actually called Mormon tea. That's its common name. It's a shrub that's found all throughout the Great Basin, and there's 12 species that are related to this plant. So ephedra. How many of you guys have ever heard of ephedra or ephedrine as like a medicine or a drug? Okay. It's actually banned and in use as like, people used to take it to like lose weight and get energy. And it did do that a little bit, but it also raised your blood pressure so much that people would die. So it's now banned. But it is the base ingredient in some like decongestants, okay? So like pseudoephedrine, or you'll see Sudafed, that's where they get the fed, is from ephedra, okay? So now you know it can have some bad things. Okay, so as far as this plant goes, there's 12 species of ephedra, so that's the genus. So there's 12 of them in North America, okay? And a lot is known about the drugs, okay, the pharmaceutical side of ephedra, but nothing's really known about What animals move ephedra around? Why do all the ephedras look so different? Most ephedras are found in Asia. How did they get here? Okay, so I went all around the US. I'll show you in a second. But first, sorry, back up. I have to tell you my question. Basically, I went around and saw all different kinds of ephedra plants. They all look like this. The green, but they all have different seeds on them, which was really weird to me. So around here, this is what the seeds look like. These big brown seeds that fall on the ground. So I thought, oh, rodents get them, right? Rodents cache them just like with pinyon pine. But then I start looking at other ephedras throughout North America. They're all in the desert. This is a desert plant. Even in Asia, it's in the desert. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing some have what almost look like berries. So this big fleshy thing that surrounds it. They're technically not called berries because this is a gymnosperm. Gymnosperms are plants that don't make fruit. Angiosperms make fruit. So anyway, what that means is it's related to pine trees. So these are actually cones, okay? So it has these fleshy cones. So I'm eating them, tastes good. They taste like berries. It was pretty cool. So I'm like, this isn't rodents. This is probably like birds, because birds disperse berries, right? They go to the shrub, eat up all the berries, and then go to a fence post somewhere and poop. They poop out the berries and give you some seeds with some fertilizer, and a new plant grows. That's how berry shrubs are dispersed. So I thought, okay, wow, that's pretty cool. Then I see these ones with these big wing things. So this looks like it's probably dispersed by wind. So all this variation just right here in North America, that's pretty remarkable. And that does not happen in plant groups, hardly ever. At least not in one location, like one North American deserts. So anyway, here's all the places I went. I decided I'm going to collect all these seeds and do all these experiments and answer this question. How are these things dispersed? So this is part of the reason I keep telling you guys I have these two little kids, because I embarked on a big, I did this 3 years in a row. I only took my kids on it was about 2.5 week trip once. And my oldest daughter threw a fit. She was only 4 and told me she would never be a biologist because all biologists do is look for seeds and get stickers in their socks. She had it because I'm like, girl, let's go find seeds. And my little 4-year-old's walking around through the cheat grass, and she put her foot down through a fit. And so I started going without my kids after that, at least for the long ones. But so we went I went all these different places. All of these different colors represent different species. So I found different species of, the different types like I showed you guys. So all these red ones, those were all those berries. Okay. And they were all found in Texas. So I spent a lot of time in Texas and New Mexico and then all through here. Got a bunch of seeds, did some experiments while I was out there. And then I came back and did basically the same exact thing. So I'm not going to go through what I'm doing here, except for to show you, yep, I even put my husband to work, might as well. And then here's me digging up caches. My husband's an engineer, but he does like the outdoors, luckily. But he had no idea what I was doing or why I was doing it. And here's an ephedra cache. So I found the same thing. They're caching ephedra seeds. Okay, so anyway, ignore all this. This is some data. Basically, looking at, how deep, I looked at some things like how deep they buried them, how many seeds were in it, how far did they take them. That's just kind of to show you some of the things I was collecting. You just go around and collect data. But this is the really cool part. So I put out some Trailmaster cameras. Have you guys ever heard of those? The little cameras with the sensor. And then I would come back and get some pictures of animals taking seeds. So this one's a white-tailed little ground squirrel shoving seeds in its cheek pouches, which is pretty cute. Of course, they had no idea they were being photographed. I did, which I didn't put in the show, I haven't even scanned this one, but at one point I had a bunch of shots, actually with a white-tailed antelope ground squirrel, and then like the next shot was a bobcat right there. And I was like, I hope it got away. Anyway, see some cool things on Trail Masters. Oh, so now I just to show you, I put everyone to work. Might as well make it a family event, getting your PhD. So I have a bunch of, here's, in Texas, collecting some of the berry shrubs. And then I did a lot of greenhouse experiments just to see how they grew. So there's my oldest daughter and youngest. This was a couple years right before I was finishing. Put them to work planting seeds. They would never do this for me now, but at the time they thought it was fun, helping mom out with. But anyway, so a lot of different experiments just to see what these seeds need and what kind of things help them grow. And then this is just because I wanted to this was like a really big deal. This is called a phylogenetic tree, and it's for all the Phaedras, not all of them because there's a bunch missing. But this is throughout the world. So you can see Asia, Mediterranean, North America, South America, and then North America. All these ones with symbols on them, these are the ones that I studied. Okay? So what I did is found each of these species, and then I was able to say how it was dispersed, either by birds, by wind, by rodents. And then if you look at the phylogenetic tree, the big thing that's really weird is that the ones that are dispersed the same aren't necessarily related to each other. Okay? So what that means is that these rodents and the birds that are taking the seeds, they sort of drive the evolution of a different dispersal mechanism. And that's kind of weird to think about, but basically the fact that they're not related and that it comes up so many different times, especially the rodent ones, see the squares, okay? That just basically tells us that the rodents that disperse seeds in North America, those are not found anywhere else throughout the world. Neither the rodents nor the rodent-dispersed plants are only found in North America. And they're so important that they drive the evolution of a lot of these to be dispersed by rodents. I guess that's a good way to say it. Does that kind of make sense? So anyway, that was a pretty exciting finding. So I guess the funnest things about my research is I get to be outside a lot and go a lot of cool places, and I really loved answering those questions. It's like literally, I mean, it might be kind of dorky, but even when I had my husband out there helping me, it's sort of like Christmas morning when you find a cache. Because it's just weird to think that you put these radioactive seeds somewhere, and then you come back and it's like, holy cow, that animal really took those and put them here last night. So my husband would go around and be like, go on, and I'm like, just mark them, because I mean, he would get all excited about finding them too, because it's cool what they do. They're like all over. Anyway, yay! So before I have a couple slides about what I do now. Does anybody have a question on that? Because I know I went fast. So I want to make sure you guys can have time to touch things. Sorry, I should have been asking for questions, but no. Okay. All right. So here's my life now. So after I got my PhD, I got a job as a professor here at UNR in the biology department. And my biggest responsibility, which, okay, I just went on about all this research I did, but I still have my bachelor's degree in human biology. And so one of my main things is teaching anatomy and physiology, okay? Here at UNR, anatomy and physiology is, well, anywhere you go, it's a huge class, okay? A lot of different majors take it. It's required for a lot of professional schools. So people that are pre-med, pre-dental, pre-physical therapy, pre-optometry, anything like that generally take or have to take anatomy and physiology. Nutrition majors take it, community health science, pre-nursing. Okay, about 90% of biology majors take it because a lot of them are pre-med or something like that, or even going into some type of brain research or something. So a lot of students take it. The weird thing, or I guess not weird, the cool thing we have here at UNR is called our dissection team. And I have some dissection team members here tonight. Some of them have moved on and started teaching these labs. But what we do is we take we have a bunch of students that apply, so it's by application only. And if you're selected, you can come back the next year and dissect human cadavers. Okay, so we have one of the few remaining human cadaver dissection programs here at UNR. So a lot of institutions have gotten rid of that program because of all the regulations. So there's a lot of red tape to keeping human cadavers on a campus, storing them, preserving them, getting them. We have a really good relationship with the med school so that we can get these, and we have jumped through a lot of hoops to keep the program. So I'll tell you more about that in a sec, but we have a group of students that dissect these cadavers, and then all our other students benefit and get to look at it. One other thing I do really quickly so that you don't think I totally went away from my desert stuff, I also teach a desert ecosystem class. And that's an upper division class, and we go on a big 5-day field trip down to the Mojave and Sonoran Desert. So I didn't want to give that up because that was sort of a life changer for me, so I make sure that I'm happy I have that opportunity. And I always get some pre-meds in there. Most of them stay pre-med, but that's cool because I work with all the pre-meds too. All right, so here's our Human Anatomy lab. They used us for some photographs they took not too long ago. And just so you can see, we don't have any of the organs out here, but students come in and study. Actually, all of these students now, because this was done 2 years ago or 4 years ago, I don't even know. He was already a med student at the time. And every single one of these, so he's a 4th year, she's a 3rd year, she's a 3rd year, she's a 1st year, he's a 2nd year. So they're all med students now. So it's a really popular thing that pre-meds do. You don't have to be pre-med by any, it just worked out, and I just noticed it right now looking at that picture. Okay, so how does the dissection team work? So you guys will be seeing one of these. This is a brain and spinal cord dissection. And we get these human cadavers. We get, starting this fall actually, we'll get 6 cadavers per year. We get 4 cadavers. A lot of other places you go, they'll have 1 cadaver they keep 5 years just to kind of look at. Okay, so we are psyched here about this program. Well, I'm psyched because I fought to keep it, and it's working out great. Okay, so and you'll meet some of the awesome students that have worked in this cadaver lab. So they dissect every Friday. They all get a chance to assist in lab. We have a really high acceptance rates to med schools. We get these cadavers from, these are individuals that have donated their body to science. So we are extremely fortunate, and we know that. We treat our cadavers with the utmost respect. No photographs are allowed. You cannot photograph, it's actually against the law. You can't photograph cadavers, you can't photograph their brains, okay? So like for you guys, you'll have to keep your cell phones away, no selfies with the brain, nothing like that, okay? That it actually is against the law. So, that kind of blew me away. I didn't know it was that bad. Somebody posted a little video on YouTube once that I didn't know about. You and our lawyers contacted me 3 days later. And they were like, we need to find this person, they have to take this down. But I mean, it was a big deal. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know. One of the other things we'll do, which you guys will get to see, is we harvest organs from these cadavers. We are allowed to, as long as they give permission, which obviously we have what they've given permission for. We can harvest the organs and then keep them for teaching. So our dissection team comes in like on winter break and harvests the brain and spinal cord out of the cadaver, and then we keep it for the next year, and students can touch brains and spinal cords, and I take them around to events like this, which is pretty awesome. Okay, I'm not going to go through all the boring stuff about my research, except I still do it, just not a lot of it. Teaching takes up a lot of my time, and I love it. I did not know I would love teaching so much, and I do. I really, really like it. And I have one grad student, and I still do research on ephedra, mostly. Now a lot of my research is focusing on ants, because ants take the seeds and eat them. And once the ants take them down, they're dead, they're gone. They don't disperse. So I've kind of been doing some research looking on that interaction, which is fun, and it's a really good break. I can sit in an anatomy lab all day getting all stinky, which you guys will smell in a minute, and then go out and be outside and do awesome stuff like that. So, that's it. Yes, Jackie.
So, other than becoming a faculty member at a university,
Yes.
what could you have done with each of your 3 degrees?
Okay, so bachelor's degree in biology. If I didn't go just graduate with a 4-year degree, we get those questions a lot. A lot of times people go into some type of research. Okay, if you don't want, you just want a bachelor's degree, you're done. You go some type of research. And there are, just even around Reno, there's a lot of labs that do research. You can do all kinds of research. You can work on, where you're looking at cell biology, looking at things in a petri dish, all types of things like that. You can go be a tech, like say for BLM Forest Service, where you're out there collecting data. So like how I told you guys, I'm out there digging up caches. There's all kinds of research always being done, like up around Tahoe, around here, etc. So you could work in like a lab looking at medicines, looking at Alzheimer's, diabetes, stuff like that, where you're actually collecting the data. Or you could be doing on the outside, something like that, okay? There's all kinds of things like that you can do with a biology degree. Masters, if you get a master's degree, you kind of move up a little bit, and then instead of being the one just out collecting the data, you're more the one that is sort of the boss of everyone collecting the data. So you sort of run an experiment, okay? So you have input, you sort of run the experiment, tell the other ones what to do, get the data, and then if you have a PhD and you don't want to be a professor, which a lot of people don't, you can be the one that designs the experiments, writes grants, gets the money, and then designs the experiments that everybody else goes out and works on. So you're more like the head boss doing that side of it. You can work in a forensics lab. You can work in like I said, a research lab, anything like that. There's a lot of options. Yes?
Is it ethical to feed rodents radioactive seeds?
Well, scandium-46, that's a great question, is the radioisotope I use. It's biologically inert, which means that they eat it and poop it out. So it does not remain behind in their tissues. So if I wanted to, I would always find radioactive poop. That's the one thing that would throw me off. So I'd be like, oh, they're seeds. Nope, it's just poop. But if I were to find the rodent, say 24, 48 hours later, and hold the Geiger counter, they would not be radioactive. So the chance that a rodent ate my seeds, pooped it out, and some isotope caused cancer, which is what some radioactive isotopes can do. The rodents have a lifespan of 2 or 3 years, so the chance that they would outlive their life before the cancer got them is pretty high. Does that make sense? But it was biologically inert for that reason, so that it would come in and out and not remain in their tissues. Yes?
How long did it take you to get your master's and PhD?
It took me 3.5 years to get my master's and 4 years to get a PhD. I had a kid right in the middle of my master's, which I'd like to say did not hold me back at all, but probably a little. Since it was outside, the 1 year, there was like no cone crop. So it was a dry drought year, and the seeds just really didn't produce very many cones, so I didn't get a lot of data that year. But I also had a kid, so it was kind of, anyway, so 3.5 years. An average master's can be anywhere 2, 3, or 4, depending on what you do. PhD, I was very fortunate in being able to collect my data quickly for that, so it was 4, 4.5 to get my PhD. Anyone else? Yes? If I would have not gone to grad school, I probably would have went to medical school. That was a tough decision for me. I had already taken the MCAT. I really liked that sort of life a little bit, but as I said, I fell in love with being outdoors and doing that research. If I didn't go that route, still went into ecology, I would probably be working like for the Forest Service, I would hope, as a manager, designing experiments to like, you know, help keep our forests healthy, something like that.